An ancient device still predicts earthquakes after 2,000 years. This is the story of a bronze marvel from China's Han Dynasty, a machine so advanced it defied its time. By the end, you will understand how a single invention changed history and why its principles still protect people today. We will uncover who built it, how it survived the centuries, and what secrets its silent dragons still hold. What does true innovation look like when it outlives empires? This bronze vessel, known as the Hufeng Didongyi, emerged from a world of profound curiosity. The Han Dynasty was an era of scholars gazing at the stars and artisans forging wonders from metal. It was a time when understanding the heavens and the earth was not just philosophy, but a matter of survival for a vast empire. The land was crossed by deep faults, and powerful tremors could level cities without warning. The loss of life and stability from these events created an urgent, practical need. Someone had to find a way to sense the unseen forces stirring beneath the ground. Into this challenge stepped Zhang Heng, a man whose mind moved between the realms of poetry, astronomy, and intricate mechanics. He served as the court astronomer, a position that demanded he interpret celestial signs for the emperor, but his attention was drawn downward to the mysterious shudders of the land itself. His solution was not born from superstition, but from brilliant observation. He reasoned that a distant quake must send waves of force through the earth, waves that could disturb a carefully balanced object long before the destructive shaking arrived. So he designed a machine to catch that first, faint tremor. For centuries after his passing, the physical knowledge of his device faded into legend, mentioned in historical texts but lost to the world. Then, in the early 1900s, archaeologists working in China made a discovery that turned legend back into reality. They unearthed descriptions and later reconstructions based on ancient records, revealing the elegant complexity of Zhang Heng's design. It was a moment that bridged 2 millennia, sparking a wave of fascination. Here was a tangible artifact from a time often misunderstood, proving that scientific ingenuity has deep and ancient roots. To see it is to see the mind of its creator, a mind that looked at a problem of immense scale and found an answer of beautiful simplicity. The true genius of Zhang Heng's design is found not in what it adds, but in what it removes. In a world without sensors or wires, his machine relied on pure mechanical intuition. That ornate bronze vessel you envision is not merely a decorative shell, it is a carefully engineered housing for a secret. Inside, suspended from the dome of the vessel, hangs a heavy inverted pendulum, a mass anchored from above but free to swing. This is the machine's silent, waiting heart. All around this central pendulum, arranged with meticulous precision, are a series of 8 lever arms. Each one is a study in balance, poised like a seesaw with one end resting lightly against the pendulum and the other end connected to the outside world through the mouth of a dragon. And within each dragon's jaw rests a single, heavy bronze ball. The entire system exists in a state of perfect, fragile equilibrium. It is a trap set for an invisible force. The principle at work is one we now call inertia. The heavy central pendulum wants to stay still, to resist movement. But when a seismic wave from a distant earthquake finally reaches the vessel, the ground itself shifts minutely beneath it. The bronze housing moves with the earth, but that suspended pendulum, due to its inertia, lags behind for just an instant. That tiny delay is enough. The pendulum swings ever so slightly within the vessel. It pushes against one of the 8 delicately balanced lever arms. This is where leverage takes over. That small nudge from the pendulum is amplified by the long arm of the lever, which acts like a catapult. The far end of the lever inside the dragon's head jerks upward. And the bronze ball, no longer supported, drops. It falls with a resonant clang into the waiting mouth of the bronze toad seated directly below on the ground. That sound in the stillness of the Imperial Observatory was the alarm. One ball drop told the Emperor's scholars not just that an earthquake had occurred, but precisely which direction it came from, as each dragon faced a cardinal or intercardinal point of the compass. This elegant chain reaction, from inertia to leverage to release, required no power source, no intricate gears. It was physics sculpted into bronze, a silent watchman that could feel a tremor from hundreds of miles away while the city around it slept in perfect calm. That single clang of bronze was more than just an alarm, it was a message. Heng's device did not merely announce an earthquake had happened. It spoke the earthquake's language, telling the Emperor's court precisely where to look. This is its second stroke of genius, the feature that transformed it from a simple sensor into a strategic tool. Encircling the vessel's belly were those 8 iconic dragons, each one meticulously positioned to face a cardinal or intercardinal direction, north, northeast, east, and so on, creating a perfect compass rose cast in bronze. But the dragons were not just decorative signposts. Inside the vessel, the heavy central pendulum was connected to a delicate and specific system. For each dragon, there was a corresponding internal lever and a tiny catch, a trigger mechanism attuned to motion from one particular direction. The entire arrangement was a masterclass in selective sensitivity. Consider a tremor originating far to the west. The seismic waves would roll toward the capital, and when they reached the detector, they would push the vessel primarily from that western direction. The suspended pendulum, resisting that motion, would swing eastward relative to the moving vessel. This specific westward shove of the ground, translated into an eastward swing of the pendulum, would engage only the internal lever connected to the west-facing dragon. The mechanism was designed to ignore pushes from other angles, ensuring that only one dragon, the one pointing back toward the source of the trouble, would be activated. Its jaw would open and the bronze ball would fall straight down into the mouth of the toad seated directly beneath it on the ground. Instantly, the officials in the room had their answer. The direction was clear. This was not a vague warning of danger somewhere. It was a vector, an arrow drawn on a map pointing toward suffering communities. In an empire without instant communication, this information was priceless. It meant Imperial aid, supplies, and officials could be dispatched down the correct road immediately, racing toward the affected region days before exhausted messengers from the disaster zone could possibly arrive. The machine did not just feel the earth move, it pointed a finger, allowing a vast administration to extend its reach with unprecedented speed and purpose, turning passive observation into active response. That elegant clang of the bronze ball provided a specific kind of knowledge, one perfectly suited to the needs of its time. To fully grasp its brilliance, we must understand a crucial technical distinction, one that defines its purpose. Heng's creation was a seismoscope, not a seismograph. The difference between these two words is the difference between a shout and a story. A modern seismograph is a data recorder. It uses a constantly moving roll of paper or a digital sensor to draw a detailed, wiggling line, a graph that charts every subtle vibration of the Earth over minutes or hours. This seismogram, as it is called, tells scientists the quake's exact duration, its intensity, and the complex waveform of its energy. It is a biography of the tremor itself. The ancient detector did none of that. It was a brilliant indicator, a single action machine. Its sole purpose was to announce, with that ringing ball, that a significant tremor had occurred and to point unambiguously toward its origin. It provided no continuous log, no chart, no measure of how strong or long the shaking was. This was not a limitation of imagination, but a reflection of intent. The Imperial court did not need a scientific waveform to analyze. They needed an actionable report. Which road do we send the aid wagons down? Which provincial governor needs to be alerted immediately? The Seismoscope answered those questions with stunning efficiency. Its design philosophy prioritized swift, clear communication over detailed data collection. It was built for response, not for research, transforming a complex natural phenomenon into a simple, decisive signal that a vast administration could instantly understand and act upon. This clarity of purpose is what secured its place in history, not as a primitive attempt at a modern tool, but as a masterfully engineered solution to a very ancient problem. The machine's silent heart was a law of physics waiting to be awakened. At its core, the device operated on a principle so fundamental we often forget to notice it: the stubborn tendency of objects to keep doing what they're already doing. This is inertia. Inside the bronze vessel, a heavy mass was carefully suspended, likely a solid pendulum anchored from above. In its resting state, it hung perfectly still. But when the ground itself shuddered from a distant earthquake, everything changed. The entire vessel, fixed to the earth, would lurch with that initial tremor. That heavy internal mass, however, possessed inertia. It resisted the sudden change. For a critical split second, it lagged behind, remaining nearly stationary while the world moved around it. This tiny mismatch, this relative motion between the moving ground and the hesitating mass, was the entire secret. It was the first domino in an elegant chain. You experience this exact phenomenon in everyday life. Think of sitting in a car that suddenly brakes. Your body lurches forward, not because a force is pulling you, but because the car slows around you while your own body's inertia tries to keep you moving at the original speed. The ancient detector was built to feel that same lurch, but on a planetary scale. Its true sophistication lay in tuning this sensitivity. Not every jolt was an earthquake. A passing cart, a slammed palace door, even a strong wind could cause vibrations. The artisans had to calibrate the pendulum's weight and the lever mechanisms to ignore these local nuisances and respond only to the deep, rolling waves of a genuine seismic event. This filtering challenge remains a core problem for modern seismologists. By mastering inertia centuries before it was formally defined by Newton, the creators demonstrated a profound truth: that the deepest insights into nature often come not from complex equations, but from watching the world with patient, brilliant eyes. The sound of the bronze ball was more than a scientific signal. It was a political instrument of immense power. In the worldview of the Han dynasty, the earth and heavens were intimately connected, and a major tremor was never seen as a mere geological accident. It was interpreted as a sign, a potential message from the cosmos about the state of the empire and the virtue of its ruler, the Son of Heaven. An unexplained earthquake could be spun by rivals or critics as evidence that the emperor had lost the mandate of heaven, that his rule was no longer in harmony with the natural order. This created a volatile climate of rumor and fear following any disaster. Heng's device fundamentally changed that dynamic. By providing an objective mechanical report, it transformed earthquakes from vague celestial warnings into specific, locatable events. The emperor could now respond not with superstition but with decisive action. Imperial historians could record the event with precision, noting the direction and time, stripping it of mystical ambiguity, and framing it within the narrative of a competent, responsive administration. The detector's reports triggered a well-organized state machinery. Couriers would be dispatched down the indicated road to confirm the damage and assess needs. Officials would follow, coordinating relief efforts, distributing grain from imperial storehouses, and providing aid to displaced families. Perhaps most importantly, the central court could authorize tax relief for the affected region, a direct and tangible demonstration of the emperor's benevolence. This practical response served a profound political purpose. It reinforced the social contract, showing the people that their ruler cared for their welfare and was in tune with the forces of the world. The machine, therefore, was not just housed in the observatory, it was a pillar of statecraft. Its very existence symbolized a shift, an assertion that human ingenuity could understand and manage the messages of the cosmos. The resources poured into its creation and maintenance were an investment in stability, in the power to replace fear with facts, and to answer a cosmic tremor with a demonstration of compassionate control. This dual role as both scientific marvel and tool of governance is what truly cemented its legendary status, making it far more valuable than any simple instrument. The silent dragon could only speak if its mechanical heart remained perfectly tuned. This brings us to the fourth, often overlooked pillar of the detector's genius, the physical substance from which it was born. Its longevity is a testament not just to a brilliant mind, but to the masterful hands and advanced material science of the Han dynasty. The choice of bronze was a deliberate and sophisticated decision. Unlike iron, which rusts and corrodes over time, or wood, which decays and warps, high-quality bronze offers a remarkable combination of qualities. It is durable, resistant to the elements, and possesses a certain springiness, a subtle give that is essential for finely balanced moving parts. But this was not ordinary bronze. The alloy used for such an important state artifact would have been carefully formulated, a specific blend of copper and tin to achieve the ideal strength, castability, and resonant ring. The vessel itself was likely created using the lost wax casting technique, a process that allowed for incredible detail. An artisan would first sculpt the entire device, dragons and all, in beeswax. This wax model would then be encased in a thick layer of clay, forming a mold. When fired, the wax would melt and drain away, leaving a perfect hollow cavity. Molten bronze would be poured into this space, filling every intricate detail of the original wax sculpture. Once cooled, the clay mold would be broken away, revealing the bronze form. But the true test of craftsmanship came next. Inside that ornate shell, the mechanism demanded perfection. The central pendulum had to swing freely without sticking. The 8 lever arms had to be perfectly balanced, each one a miniature seesaw responding to the faintest touch. The tiny catches and hinges, the channels that guided the bronze balls, all had to be crafted with a precision we would associate with a master watchmaker. This was a balancing act in every sense, ensuring the device was sensitive enough to detect a distant tremor, yet stable enough to ignore the constant minor vibrations of daily palace life. The material choice also carried deep symbolic weight. Bronze had a ceremonial, authoritative aesthetic in ancient China, used for ritual vessels and important state documents. By crafting the earthquake detector from this revered material, it was elevated from a mere tool to a sacred instrument of state, its form communicating its importance as clearly as its function. This mastery of metal is a key chapter in the story of its survival, for it was this physical resilience that allowed it to endure the slow passage of centuries, waiting silently for the moment of its rediscovery. Yet for over 1,000 years, the physical machine was a ghost, a story told in old books. The magnificent bronze vessel, its dragons and toads, had vanished completely, leaving behind only tantalizing written descriptions in imperial records. Scholars debated whether such a device could have ever truly functioned as the histories claimed, or if it was merely a symbolic myth, an ancient legend of imperial power. This all changed with the slow, patient work of archaeology and a new wave of historical curiosity in the early 20th century. Researchers began to scour ancient texts with fresh eyes, not just as literary works but as technical manuals. They found detailed accounts of the device's dimensions, its 8 dragons, and even notes on its operation. Then came the physical clues, fragments of later dynastic replicas, and artistic depictions on recovered artifacts that provided crucial visual references. It was a historical detective story, piecing together a puzzle where most of the pieces were made of words and faded ink. The breakthrough came when modern engineers and historians joined forces. They took those ancient descriptions and began to build not with bronze but with ideas. Using principles of physics and mechanical engineering, they created digital three-dimensional models and physical working replicas. This process of reverse engineering was a conversation across time. The modern teams had to ask, given the materials and knowledge of the Han Dynasty, how would we make this work? They experimented with different pendulum weights, lever lengths, and trigger mechanisms. Each test was a question posed to the past. Could a device built exactly as described actually sense a simulated tremor? The answer, resoundingly, was yes. When a modern replica was subjected to simulated earthquake waves on a shake table, the principle proved flawless. A carefully tuned pendulum and lever system could indeed detect directional motion and release a ball. The legend had engineering merit. Further analysis went deeper into the very metal of surviving artifacts. Metallurgical studies of bronze objects from the same period revealed the advanced alloy science of the era, confirming that craftsmen had the material knowledge to create components with the necessary strength and subtle flexibility. This modern validation did something profound. It bridged the gap between myth and machine. We were no longer just reading about Zhang Heng's genius, we were witnessing it in action, understanding his solution from a contemporary perspective. It transformed the device from a curious historical footnote into a landmark of human ingenuity, a testament to an observational science that was centuries ahead of its time. The silent dragons, through this detective work, finally found their voice again. This silent guardian faced a dilemma of perception. To be useful, it had to be exquisitely sensitive, capable of feeling the faintest whisper of a tremor from hundreds of miles away. Yet it also had to possess immense patience, to sit unmoved by the constant rumble of palace life, the marching of guards or carts rolling on nearby streets. Achieving this perfect balance was perhaps the most difficult engineering puzzle of all, a puzzle solved not with theoretical formulas, but through relentless, hands-on experimentation. The artisans and engineers tasked with building and tuning the machine would have engaged in a lengthy process of trial and error. They would have started with a basic pendulum and lever design, then subjected a prototype to various simulated disturbances. Too heavy a pendulum and the device might become sluggish, missing the subtle onset of a distant quake. Too light and it could become jittery, releasing its ball at the slightest provocation. The length of the lever arms was another critical variable, acting as an amplifier. A longer arm would magnify the pendulum's tiny swing, making the trigger more sensitive, but also more prone to false alarms from minor vibrations. The tension on the tiny catches that held the bronze balls in the dragon's jaws was a final, delicate adjustment. These catches had to be firm enough to hold the weight securely, yet loose enough to disengage with the gentlest, correct nudge from the lever. Think of tuning a massive, intricate musical instrument like a grand harp with strings of bronze and wood. The craftsman adjusts each string's tension by tiny degrees, listening for the perfect pitch. Here, the engineers were tuning for a different kind of resonance, the precise mechanical response to a specific kind of earth movement. They likely used counterweights and adjusted pivot points, observing the device's behavior under different conditions, slowly refining it through observation and adjustment. The successful calibration was a triumph of empirical engineering. It meant the finished device could detect seismic waves so faint that no human in the capital would feel even a tremor underfoot. The ground might seem perfectly still, yet inside the bronze vessel, the silent pendulum would have already caught that first, imperceptible wave, setting the chain reaction in motion. This gave the Empire something priceless, a true early warning. The confirmation of the quake and the direction of aid could be decided days before shocked messengers from the devastated region ever reached the capital. That this level of precise, functional calibration was achieved centuries before the invention of precision machining tools is nothing short of astounding. It forces us to ask a compelling question: if the machine worked so perfectly in principle, did it ever face its ultimate test? Did the dragons ever roar to life in the face of a real, historic earthquake? The question of its real-world performance lingered for centuries, a puzzle locked in ancient texts. To move from historical admiration to scientific fact, researchers needed to do more than just read about the machine. They needed to build it and put it to the test. This led to a fascinating era of experimental archaeology, where teams in China and later around the world set out to construct full-scale, functional replicas based solely on the surviving descriptions. Their goal was not to create a museum piece but a working instrument. They sourced period-appropriate materials, cast bronze dragons and toads, and engineered the internal pendulum and lever system using only techniques that would have been available in the Han Dynasty. Each replica was a hypothesis made physical, a question posed in metal and wood. Did the described design actually function? The moment of truth came in the modern laboratory, on a piece of equipment called a shake table. This device can simulate the precise rolling and jolting motions of real earthquakes with controlled intensity. Researchers carefully placed their bronze replicas on these tables and began the tests. They programmed the table to mimic the long, slow surface waves of a distant tremor, the very kind of motion the ancient device was designed to detect. In a series of landmark experiments, the results were clear and compelling. The replicas worked. When the simulated seismic waves passed through the table, the internal pendulum swung. It engaged a specific lever arm, and with a resonant clang that echoed across 2,000 years, a bronze ball dropped from a dragon's mouth into the waiting toad below. Even more impressive, the direction indicated by the falling ball consistently matched the direction from which the simulated waves originated. The ancient design was not only functional, it was accurate. These experiments provided something beyond validation. They yielded concrete data. Scientists could now measure the device's sensitivity, determining the minimum wave amplitude it could detect. They could study its directional selectivity, confirming it could distinguish between waves coming from different compass points. They also discovered its limitations, such as its likely inability to pinpoint the exact distance to an earthquake's epicenter, only its direction. This modern testing transformed our understanding. The Hufeng Didongyi was no longer a speculative legend or a symbolic artifact. It was a proven, sophisticated piece of mechanical technology. The experiments bridged the humanities and the sciences, allowing historians to say with confidence that the records were correct, and allowing engineers to appreciate the elegance of a solution that had been quietly waiting in the pages of history, ready to prove its worth once more. That resonant clang was far more than just a satisfying sound. It was the device's voice. In the quiet halls of the Imperial Observatory, especially during the deep silence of night, a visual cue alone could easily be missed. An attendant might be recording stars, reviewing scrolls, or simply not looking directly at the instrument at the precise moment a ball was released. The brilliant, simple addition of an acoustic signal solved this problem completely. When the bronze ball fell, it did not land on a soft cushion or a wooden tray. It struck the interior of another bronze vessel, the toad's open mouth. The impact of metal on metal would produce a sharp, clear tone that carried through the room, an immediate and unmistakable auditory alert that demanded attention. This transformed the machine from a passive indicator into an active announcer. It employed a principle we now call multi-sensory feedback, layering visual and auditory information to guarantee the message was received. You can think of it like a modern emergency system that uses both flashing lights and a loud siren. The combination ensures the alert cuts through distraction and reaches people regardless of where they are or what they are doing. The choice of bronze was acoustically intentional. The specific alloy, with its blend of copper and tin, was known for its sonorous quality, the same reason it was used for temple bells and ceremonial gongs. The craftsmen were not just metalworkers, they were sound engineers. The shape of the toad's mouth likely acted as a resonator, amplifying the strike of the ball into a distinctive, penetrating clang that was difficult to ignore or confuse with any other common palace noise. This acoustic design reveals a profound understanding of human attention and communication. In an era without electric lights or speakers, the sound itself became the most reliable messenger. It turned a complex geological event into a single, decisive sensory experience, a ringing declaration that cut through the darkness and silence to announce, without any room for doubt, that the earth had spoken and the empire needed to listen. The quest to understand the trembling earth was a shared human challenge. Across the ancient world, from the Mediterranean to the islands of Japan, other cultures were also developing their own methods to interpret the planet's warnings, though their approaches were fundamentally different. In classical Greece, philosophers and historians like Aristotle and Thucydides made careful notes connecting unusual animal behavior to subsequent seismic events. They observed rats, snakes, and insects fleeing their homes in the days before a major tremor, a phenomenon modern science attributes to animals sensing subtle changes in groundwater chemistry or detecting the faint precursor waves humans cannot feel. This was a method of pure observation, watching the natural world for clues. Similarly, in Japan, a land perpetually shaped by tectonic forces, a tradition emerged of monitoring well water. A sudden, unexplained change in water level, clarity, or even taste in a community well was taken as a potential sign of subsurface stress and an impending earthquake. These techniques were brilliant in their own right, born of deep, generational attention to environmental patterns, yet they stand in stark contrast to the Chinese seismoscope. The Greek and Japanese methods were passive and interpretative, relying on observing secondary effects in nature. They required someone to notice the fleeing animals or the altered well, and then to correctly interpret that sign as a warning, a process vulnerable to doubt and delay. Heng's device, however, was active and engineered. It did not wait for animals to behave strangely or for water to change. It directly interrogated the Earth's motion itself. It was a dedicated instrument built for a single, precise purpose, transforming an invisible force into an unambiguous, directional signal. This comparison does not diminish the wisdom of other cultures, but it throws the Han Dynasty achievement into brilliant relief. It represents a monumental leap from reading nature's indirect signs to building an artificial system that could capture and report the primary event. In the global story of pre-modern science, it stands as a singular pinnacle, a moment where mechanical invention was harnessed not for labor or warfare, but for the profound civic purpose of anticipating disaster and guiding compassion. A perfectly tuned machine is useless if it cries wolf. For the ancient seismoscope, its exquisite sensitivity was both its greatest strength and its most dangerous flaw. Every gust of wind against the palace walls, every heavy cart rumbling down a nearby street, even the footsteps of a passing guard could, in theory, set the delicate levers in motion and trigger a false alarm. A single erroneous report could waste Imperial resources, undermine the device's sacred credibility, and shake confidence in the entire system. Solving this problem required a second layer of genius, not in the machine itself, but in its environment. Historical records hint that the detector was housed in a dedicated chamber, a quiet sanctuary within the bustling observatory complex. This was not merely for prestige, it was a critical piece of engineering. The foundation of this chamber was likely designed with isolation in mind. Builders may have used deep stone pilings set into stable bedrock, bypassing the looser, more vibratory topsoil. The platform holding the bronze vessel itself could have been a massive, single block of stone, its great weight and inertia acting as a natural buffer against high-frequency local jolts. Think of a candle flame in a glass lantern. The lantern does not stop the wind, but it creates a pocket of calm air where the flame can burn steadily. The installation chamber served as that lantern, a shielded space where only the deep, rolling waves of a true seismic event could penetrate and reach the instrument's heart. This ancient understanding of environmental shielding is a cornerstone of modern seismology. Today, sensitive seismometers are placed in remote vaults, buried in boreholes, or mounted on bedrock far from human activity, all to achieve the same goal: filtering out the noisy chatter of civilization to listen clearly to the Earth's own voice. The Han engineers, through thoughtful placement and stable foundations, were practicing a form of signal processing centuries before the concept had a name. They recognized that a detector's location is as important as its design, that to hear a whisper from 100 miles away, you must first silence the conversation in the room. But the machine did not invent itself. To understand its quiet genius, we must meet the mind that conceived it. Heng was a polymath, a master of many disciplines, living in an era that prized the interconnectedness of all knowledge. He served the Han court not as a specialist but as a synthesizer of wisdom. His official title was Chief Astronomer, a role that demanded he chart the heavens, predict eclipses, and maintain the imperial calendar, the very rhythm of state and agriculture. Yet his curiosity refused to be confined to a single dome of stars. He was also a gifted mathematician who refined the calculation of pi, a poet whose verses captured the beauty and melancholy of the human experience, and a skilled cartographer who sought to map the known world with greater accuracy. This was not a scattered intellect but a unified one. He saw the patterns in the stars, the rhythms in numbers, and the structures in poetry as different expressions of the same underlying cosmic order. It was this holistic worldview that made the earthquake detector possible. He did not approach the problem as a mere mechanic, but as an astronomer who understood celestial motion, a mathematician who could calculate leverage and balance, and a poet who could envision a silent dragon holding a message. His most famous other invention illustrates this same synthesizing mind, a water-powered armillary sphere. This was an intricate model of the cosmos, with rings representing celestial orbits, driven by the constant flow of water through a clepsydra or water clock. It automatically displayed the movement of the sun, moon, and stars, a working planetarium that merged hydraulic engineering with precise astronomical observation. For Zhang Heng, the flowing water that powered the stars and the trembling earth that threatened cities were not separate mysteries. They were interconnected phenomena to be measured, understood, and ultimately harmonized. His drive was not purely academic, it was deeply civic. He believed that understanding the natural world was the highest form of service to the empire and its people. The earthquake detector was the ultimate expression of this philosophy, a device born from celestial curiosity and earthly compassion, designed to transform a terrifying act of nature into an opportunity for swift, effective governance. To study his life is to see a blueprint for innovation, where profound breakthroughs often lie at the intersections, where astronomy meets poetry, and where a concern for human welfare guides the hand of engineering. The dragons and toads were far more than beautiful decoration. Every curve and casting was a deliberate language, a visual code that explained the machine's purpose to any scholar who beheld it. In the cosmology of ancient China, the universe was a dynamic conversation between heaven and earth, between celestial forces and terrestrial reality. The dragon was the ultimate symbol of the celestial, a creature of power that ruled the waters of the sky and embodied the emperor's own mandate. It was associated with the East, with spring, and with the activating masculine principle of Yang. The toad, however, held a different but equally profound meaning. Often linked to the moon goddess Zhang, it was a creature of the earthly, of water in pools and wells, and represented the receptive, feminine principle of yin. Their pairing on the detector was a masterstroke of symbolic engineering. The 8 dragons, arranged in a perfect circle, likely represented the 8 directions and, by extension, the entire celestial sphere, the source of cosmic influence. They held the bronze balls, the potential for action, the stored signal. The 8 toads, seated patiently on the ground with upturned mouths, represented the earthly plane, ready to receive and manifest that celestial message. When a tremor occurred, the dragon would release its ball, a celestial force surrendering its charge. The toad would catch it, the earth receiving and grounding that force with a resonant clang. The entire process was a miniature drama of cosmic interaction, a perfect visual metaphor for the device's function, translating an invisible disturbance in the harmony of the world into a tangible, earthly event. This fusion transformed the machine. It was no longer just a clever piece of bronze mechanics. It was a philosophical statement cast in metal. It declared that understanding the earth required understanding the heavens, that science and myth were not enemies but partners in deciphering a mysterious world. For the court officials, its beauty reinforced its authority. Its symbolism legitimized its function, making it an icon of a civilization that saw no divide between the pursuit of knowledge and the poetry of existence. The principles locked within that bronze vessel were seeds, waiting centuries to grow into the forest of modern seismology. Our tools today are marvels of silicon and satellite links, yet they still answer the same fundamental questions first posed by that ancient pendulum. How is the ground moving? From which direction did the energy come? How can we translate that motion into a warning? The direct lineage is astonishing. Inside every modern seismometer, whether in a remote desert vault or on the ocean floor, lies a core component called an inertial sensor. It is the spiritual descendant of Zhang Heng's hanging mass. Today's version is often a carefully balanced magnet suspended within a coil of wire. When the ground shakes, the magnet's inertia makes it lag behind, just as the bronze pendulum did. This relative motion between the magnet and the coil generates a tiny electrical current, a signal that is then amplified and digitized. The ancient detector used a lever to amplify a physical nudge into a ball drop. The modern instrument uses electronics to amplify an electrical signal into a data stream. The principle of inertia harnessed for detection is the unbroken thread. Even the challenge of directional sensing finds its echo in modern networks. A single seismometer today can indicate a rough direction, but to pinpoint an earthquake's exact epicenter, scientists use a triangulation method. They compare the precise arrival times of seismic waves at 3 or more different stations scattered across the landscape. By calculating the time differences, they can draw intersecting arcs on a map that converge on the source, a vastly more precise version of the single arrow provided by one falling bronze ball. This continuity humbles our perspective. The gleaming global network of the 21st century, with its instant alerts buzzing on smartphones, is not a rupture from the past but an evolution. It stands on a foundation laid 2,000 years ago by an astronomer who looked at a trembling world and asked how to listen. Our quest is the same long, interconnected human endeavor, each generation building upon the insights of the last, transforming bronze balls into binary code, but always striving toward the same goal, to hear the Earth's whispers and protect those who live upon it. A machine of such delicate balance could not simply be set and forgotten. For the Hufeng Didongyi to stand ready across years of service, its silent promise depended on a hidden layer of human care, a quiet ritual of upkeep performed by dedicated custodians. While no ancient manual detailing its maintenance has survived, we can reconstruct the likely practices from what we know of the Han Imperial Court. The responsibility would have fallen to the court astronomers or a specialized bureau of technicians, scholars who understood both its mechanical soul and its sacred purpose. Their duties were a blend of priestly reverence and meticulous craftsmanship. On a regular schedule, perhaps with the changing of seasons or phases of the moon, they would have approached the bronze vessel not as admirers but as guardians. Their first task was inspection, a careful visual and tactile examination. They would check that the 8 external dragons were free of accumulated dust or tarnish that might impede the ball's release. More critically, they would ensure the internal pendulum hung perfectly vertical and swung without the slightest hitch or stickiness. A speck of corrosion on a pivot point, a buildup of fine Pallas dust on a lever arm, or even a spider's web spun in the stillness of night could compromise the entire system's sensitivity. The choice of bronze itself was a maintenance advantage. Its natural resistance to rust, meaning major corrosion, was less of a threat than simple grime or misalignment. Yet moving parts, no matter how finely cast, require care. The pivot points of the 8 lever arms, the tiny catches holding the bronze balls, these would have needed occasional lubrication. They likely used a natural substance like beeswax or a light animal fat oil, applied with the utmost precision, a drop from a fine brush to ensure smooth movement without attracting more dust. The most skilled task was recalibration. Over time, or after a rare false alarm, the technicians might need to adjust the system. This could involve adding or removing minute counterweights to the pendulum or lever arms, or delicately bending a trigger catch by a hair's breadth to restore the perfect tension between stability and sensitivity. This was not a repair job, but a tuning, like a luthier adjusting the pegs of a priceless Gucan to find the perfect pitch. This ongoing, invisible work is a profound part of the technology's story. It reminds us that the longevity of any great invention is not just in its initial brilliance, but in the culture of stewardship that surrounds it. The silent watchman on its stone platform was, in truth, part of a living partnership, a dialogue between human vigilance and mechanical genius, each ensuring the other was always prepared for the moment the Earth chose to speak. The silent dragons have found a new home in the world of stories. Long after the last Imperial technician tended to its bronze mechanisms, the earthquake detector has escaped the confines of history books to become a modern icon, a recurring symbol of ancient, almost mystical intelligence. Its striking visual form, the circle of dragons poised above waiting toads, is instantly recognizable and carries a powerful narrative shorthand. In literature, it often appears as a plot device, a forgotten marvel rediscovered by intrepid archaeologists or scholars, its functioning a puzzle that unlocks a deeper secret about a lost civilization's wisdom. Documentaries faithfully recreate its form, using computer animations to bring its internal dance to life, presenting it as a definitive answer to those who underestimate the scientific achievements of the ancient world. The device's journey into popular culture reveals our collective fascination with the idea of pre-modern genius. It represents a tangible, what-if, a concrete example of sophisticated technology existing long before the timeline we often imagine for such inventions. This cultural embrace sometimes takes creative liberties. In certain video games or speculative fiction, its capabilities are amplified, transformed into a flawless, magical early warning system, or even a key to predicting future cataclysms. These portrayals, while exaggerated, stem from a genuine sense of wonder. They are less about historical accuracy and more about using the detector as a vessel for a compelling idea, the notion that our ancestors might have possessed knowledge we are still rediscovering. The comparison between these fictional portrayals and the historical reality is enlightening. The real machine was not infallible or magical. It was a brilliant mechanical interpreter of physics, requiring constant care and calibration. Yet its symbolic power in culture is arguably just as significant as its original function. It acts as a bridge, translating complex academic history into a visual story that sparks public curiosity. When a viewer sees the detector in a documentary or a game, they are encountering a gateway. That moment of recognition, that striking image, can inspire someone to look deeper, to seek out the true story behind the symbol. In this way, the Hufeng Didongyi performs a final, enduring service. It continues to detect not tremors in the earth, but tremors of curiosity in the human mind, ensuring that a 2,000-year-old conversation between ingenuity and nature is never truly silenced. Yet for all its elegance, the ancient seismoscope had a very specific and limited conversation with the earth. It was a brilliant listener, but it could only hear certain things. Its primary function was to answer two questions with stunning clarity. Did a significant tremor occur, and from which general direction did it come? Beyond that, the device fell silent. It could not measure what we now call magnitude, the total energy released by the quake. A powerful, devastating tremor from 100 miles away and a moderate, less damaging one from the same direction would have triggered the exact same response, a single ball drop from the same dragon. The machine offered no scale, no way to gauge the severity of the event from the capital. Similarly, it had no ability to determine the depth of the earthquake's origin, whether it was a shallow, destructive event near the surface or a deep, less impactful one far below. Its range, while likely spanning hundreds of miles, was ultimately finite. A quake on the very edge of the empire or beyond its borders might have sent waves too faint for even its tuned pendulum to catch, leaving the dragons silent. Furthermore, it provided a snapshot, not a story. After the ball fell, the machine reset to its waiting state. It did not record the aftershocks that inevitably follow a major tremor, those crucial secondary waves that can collapse already weakened structures. There was no continuous data stream, no wiggling line on a chart to show how the ground shook over time. These were not failures of design, but inherent boundaries of its technological world. The materials, the understanding of wave physics, and the purpose of the device all defined its scope. Acknowledging these limits does not diminish its achievement. Instead, it frames the invention with honest precision. It was a masterful solution to a specific critical need, not a universal tool for all seismic science. This clear-eyed view of its capabilities makes the subsequent journey of discovery all the more remarkable. It shows us the exact starting point, the brilliant first question asked of the trembling Earth. Every modern seismometer, with its ability to pinpoint epicenters, calculate magnitudes, and log continuous data, is an answer to the subsequent questions that the bronze vessel could not even ask. Our sophisticated networks today stand on that original, foundational insight, but they have built an entire language from where the ancient detector spoke its first, single, resonant word. The silent dragons have found sanctuary in the quiet halls of museums, where their story is carefully preserved for all to see. Today, the most significant artifacts and faithful reconstructions of the Hufeng Didongyi reside in institutions like the National Museum of China in Beijing and the Henan Museum. These are not dusty relics forgotten in a corner, but centerpieces of cultural heritage, displayed with the reverence they deserve. Seeing one in person is a powerful experience, the intricate bronze work catching the light, a tangible connection to an ancient mind at work. Conservation of these priceless objects is a science in itself, a quiet battle against time. Specialists monitor the environment around the clock, controlling humidity and temperature to prevent the bronze from developing a destructive corrosion known as bronze disease. They use non-invasive techniques like three-dimensional laser scanning to document every detail without touching the surface, creating a digital twin that can be studied forever. This meticulous care ensures that these fragile links to our past will endure for centuries more, silent but eloquent teachers. Many museums go beyond static display. creating interactive models that bring the ancient principle to life. You might find a hands-on exhibit where you can turn a crank to simulate seismic waves, watching a pendulum swing and trigger a lever that releases a ball. These interactive displays are masterful tools for demystifying complex ideas. They translate abstract descriptions of inertia and leverage into a physical experience you can see and feel. For a young visitor, it transforms a historical fact into a delightful puzzle, a how-does-it-work moment that sparks genuine curiosity. This is where the detector's mission truly evolves from an imperial warning system to a global educational instrument. The museum setting provides essential context, placing the device alongside other Han Dynasty innovations in astronomy, cartography, and metallurgy. This holistic view shatters the outdated notion of ancient technological simplicity, revealing instead a sophisticated culture of inquiry and craftsmanship. These displays serve a profound purpose far beyond tourism. They are guardians of collective memory, preserving a tangible link to a pivotal moment in our technological heritage. For an engineer, seeing the elegant mechanical solution can inspire biomimicry or new approaches to simple, robust design. For a historian, it provides a physical anchor point for understanding the Han Dynasty's worldview, where art, science, and statecraft were seamlessly woven together. Most importantly, for any visitor, it offers a quiet but potent counter-narrative. In a world often focused on the relentless pace of future innovation, the earthquake detector reminds us that profound genius is not a modern invention. It encourages humility and wonder, asking us to consider what other brilliant solutions from the past might still hold wisdom for our future. The museum, therefore, becomes the detector's new imperial court, and every visitor a scholar receiving its timeless message. A single bronze vessel in the capital could point the way, but could it truly map the source of the trouble? This leads us to one of the most compelling modern questions about the ancient detector. What if it was never alone? Historians and engineers have long pondered a tantalizing possibility that multiple instruments were strategically placed across the Han Empire, forming the world's first seismic monitoring network. While no archaeological evidence has yet confirmed a network existed, the logical and strategic argument for one is remarkably strong. Think of the difference between hearing a shout and pinpointing the shouter. A single detector in the Imperial Observatory could tell you a quake came from the west, but if you had a second detector in a western province, and it also reported a quake from the west, the officials could start to draw lines on a map. If the western province's detector indicated the tremor came from the north, the picture sharpens further. By comparing the directional reports from 2 or even 3 separate locations, skilled cartographers of the time could have used a form of triangulation, drawing lines backward from each detector's indicated direction. The point where those lines converged would be a rough estimate of the epicenter, a vastly more precise location than a simple compass bearing from the capital alone. This would transform Imperial response from a directional guess into a targeted mission. The value for a sprawling empire is undeniable, turning a brilliant invention into a potentially transformative system. But was it logistically possible? The Han Dynasty maintained a sophisticated courier system, the Yizhen, with relay stations spaced a day's travel apart. This network allowed messages to cover hundreds of miles in a matter of days. A protocol could have been established where a provincial governor, upon his local detector's activation, would immediately dispatch a fast rider to the capital with a simple report, direction, and time. Officials in the capital could then compare the timing and direction of their own instruments' alert with the incoming provincial reports. The coordination would have been slow by our standards, taking days or even weeks, but it would still represent a quantum leap in disaster assessment for the ancient world. Are there any hints this actually happened? The historical records are frustratingly silent on operational details, focusing on the marvel of the device itself rather than its deployment. However, the Han Imperial bureaucracy was famously meticulous in data collection, from census records to agricultural yields. The idea that they would build such a powerful informational tool and use only one copy, placing all their trust in a single point of failure, seems at odds with their systematic nature. Considering this network hypothesis does more than just speculate. It fundamentally expands our view of ancient scientific ambition. It suggests a conceptual leap from building a wonderful machine to building an integrated information system. It paints a picture not of a lone genius and his artifact, but of an entire administrative apparatus thinking in terms of data points, cross-referencing, and geographic analysis. This vision feels strikingly modern, hinting that the true legacy of the Hufeng Didongyi may not rest in a single vessel of bronze, but in the quiet, systematic mind of an empire that understood knowledge was most powerful when it was shared. This remarkable device offers a unique gift for education, a single story that opens doors to multiple worlds of knowledge. In classrooms around the globe, the tale of the ancient Seismoscope has become a powerful interdisciplinary tool, a perfect fusion of STEM and history that captures young imaginations. Teachers use it to illustrate fundamental physics, demonstrating the principles of inertia and leverage with a narrative far more gripping than a textbook diagram. In engineering units, it becomes a case study in elegant design, showing how constraints in materials and technology can inspire ingenious mechanical solutions. For earth science, it provides a human entry point into the study of plate tectonics and seismic waves, grounding abstract geology in a tangible, historical quest to understand natural disasters. And in history class, it shatters simplistic timelines, proving that profound scientific inquiry existed long before the modern laboratory. This multidimensional approach makes learning sticky, connecting abstract concepts to a compelling human story of curiosity and resilience. The most effective lessons are often hands-on, where students become the engineers of the past. A popular project involves constructing simple model seismoscopes using everyday materials: cardboard for the vessel, string and a weight for the pendulum, and marbles for the bronze balls. The challenge is not merely to copy a design, but to troubleshoot it, to experiment with pendulum length and lever balance to achieve the right sensitivity. This process of trial and error mirrors the very journey of the Han Dynasty artisans, teaching that innovation is rarely a single eureka, a moment, but a persistent process of observation, hypothesis, and refinement. When a student's model finally triggers and releases a marble in the correct direction after a simulated tremor, the lesson transcends memorization. It becomes a lived experience of problem solving. The device's legacy thus actively cultivates a crucial mindset for the future. It demonstrates that groundbreaking innovation is not the sole property of any one era or culture, but a timeless human capacity. By studying this ancient machine, students are subtly encouraged to think critically about how we identify problems and craft solutions, using the tools and understanding available to us. It connects the curiosity of a second-century astronomer directly to the potential within a 21st-century student, suggesting that the next great inventor might be sitting in a classroom right now, inspired by a story of dragons, bronze, and a desire to listen to the earth. The very perfection of its design leaves us with tantalizing gaps in our understanding. While modern reconstructions prove the principle works, the exact configuration of the original internal mechanism remains a subject of scholarly debate. Ancient texts describe the device in poetic terms, speaking of a hanging mass and 8 levers, but they lack the detailed engineering diagrams we crave. Did the pendulum swing freely, or was it constrained in some way to improve directional sensitivity? What precise shape and weight were the lever arms, and how were the delicate trigger catches fashioned? These are not trivial details, they are the fingerprints of the original craftsmen, lost to time. The absence of a complete, excavated original means every reconstruction involves an element of educated guesswork, a best interpretation of the clues left behind. This uncertainty is not a failure of history, but an invitation. It means the Hufeng Didongyi is not a static artifact with a single, fixed truth, but a living puzzle that continues to engage engineers and historians in a collaborative dialogue across centuries. Each new attempt to build a working model tests a different hypothesis about those missing details, refining our collective understanding of what the Han Dynasty artisans were truly capable of. The mystery of its inner workings ensures the device remains an active participant in modern research, not merely a relic of the past. Equally elusive are the human hands that maintained this delicate instrument. We know it existed within a sophisticated imperial bureaucracy, but how were the technicians selected and trained? Was there a formal apprenticeship, a secret guild of instrument keepers who passed down their calibration techniques from master to student? Did they keep meticulous logbooks of adjustments and false alarms, creating an early form of data log that has since been lost? The silence on these procedural questions is profound. The machine did not operate in a vacuum. It was the centerpiece of a human system of care and interpretation. Understanding that system, the daily rituals and the accumulated practical knowledge, would tell us just as much about ancient innovation as the bronze vessel itself. It would reveal the living culture of science that supported the brilliant flash of invention. This missing chapter reminds us that technology is always a partnership between the tool and the community that tends it, a relationship often erased by time, leaving only the silent, beautiful object behind. The hope for new answers lies in the steady, patient work of archaeology and the application of ever more sensitive analytical tools. While a complete, original seismoscope has never been found, the possibility always exists. Future excavations at Han Dynasty sites, perhaps an imperial workshop or a previously undisturbed tomb, could yield fragments, molds, or even a preserved instrument. More likely, the next breakthrough may come from a re-examination of existing artifacts or texts with new technologies. Advanced three-dimensional scanning of related bronze objects can reveal microscopic tool marks and casting techniques, telling us exactly how such fine mechanisms were made. Spectral imaging of fragile silk or bamboo scrolls might uncover faded ink, revealing lost maintenance manuals or observational records hidden beneath later writing. Researchers are also employing computational modeling to simulate thousands of possible internal configurations, testing them against the historical descriptions and the laws of physics to narrow down the most plausible original designs. This ongoing detective work is a testament to the device's enduring power to fascinate. It confirms that the story is not over. These unanswered questions are the engine that keeps history vibrant. They transform the ancient detector from an answered question into an ongoing conversation. Every time a researcher ponders a lever's pivot point or an archaeologist sifts through soil at a Han site, they are participating in that conversation. This is the true nature of understanding our past. It is not about filling a museum with static facts, but about engaging in a continuous, collaborative investigation. The Hufeng Didongyi, in all its elegant mystery, challenges us to look deeper. It reminds us that the most profound legacies are those that continue to ask questions of us long after their creators have passed. The final secret it holds may not be about earthquakes at all, but about the unquenchable human drive to solve a puzzle, to listen closely, and to connect with a flicker of genius from a world that is never truly lost. Its enduring silence speaks to a deeper principle, one that transcends its bronze and mechanics. This ancient device is a masterclass in resilient design, a philosophy centered on creating solutions that are inherently simple, durable, and functionally independent. It asks nothing of the world except a tremor, No power source, no software updates, no network connection, no specialized fuel. Its operation is a closed loop of cause and effect, a self-contained system that converts the Earth's own energy into a clear, actionable signal. This stands in stark contrast to much of our modern technological landscape, which often prioritizes complexity, connectivity, and planned obsolescence. We build devices that are brilliant but fragile, dependent on sprawling grids and supply chains that can themselves become points of failure in a crisis. The Detector presents a different calculus of value, where longevity and autonomous function are the highest forms of sophistication. Its potential for centuries of service, maintained by basic care and calibration, challenges our contemporary notions of what makes technology advanced. True advancement, it suggests, might not always mean adding more features, but rather refining a core function to a state of timeless reliability. This philosophy is not about rejecting progress, but about balancing it with permanence. Consider the challenge of designing early warning systems for vulnerable communities today. While satellite networks and digital sensors provide incredible speed and detail, they can be expensive, require constant technical support, and may fail if power or communications are severed. Integrating a layer of resilient, passive design inspired by principles like those in the ancient Detector could create vital redundancies. Imagine simple, mechanical tide gauges alongside digital ones in coastal towns, or robust, hand-powered weather stations in remote areas. These are not replacements for modern technology, but complements, backup systems that embody the same resilient ideal: simple, durable, and functional on their own terms. The lesson here is about building layers of safety. The Detector's legacy encourages us to think in terms of endurance, to engineer systems that can wait patiently, function independently, and remain useful across generations. This is a crucial mindset for facing an uncertain future, where challenges like natural disasters demand solutions that are not just smart, but also steadfast. It reminds us that sometimes the most forward-looking design looks back, recognizing that elegance and resilience are forms of wisdom that never go out of date. The bronze ball's clang was a beginning, not an end. In the stillness following that resonant sound, the true system sprang to life, a system of trained minds and practiced hands. The Detector's voice was mechanical, but its meaning depended entirely on the officials stationed in the observatory, the silent partners in this ancient early warning network. These were not passive watchers, they were skilled interpreters, the crucial link between a trembling pendulum and an imperial decree. Their role was one of disciplined observation and immediate action. The moment a ball fell, an attendant would note its precise direction from the dragon's mouth, marking the compass bearing on a wax tablet or silk scroll. He would record the time, likely measured by a water clock in the same chamber, creating a timestamp for the event. This simple act of documentation transformed a singular event into a permanent record, the first step in a chain of accountability and response. But their duty went beyond mere notation. They had to trust the machine implicitly. In an era rife with omens and superstition, distinguishing a true seismic signal from a potential malfunction or even a clever act of sabotage required both technical understanding and unwavering confidence in the instrument's design. They were trained to recognize the difference between the deep, rolling vibration that preceded a ball's release and the sharper jolts of local activity the device was calibrated to ignore. This human judgment was the final filter, the quality control that prevented false alarms from wasting Imperial resources. Upon verification, a prepared courier would be handed the report, a slip of bamboo or silk inscribed with the direction and time. That courier then entered the Empire's famed relay system, sprinting to the next station to pass the message along in a relentless race against time. The detector provided the arrow, but these men drew the bow, translating raw directional data into a targeted administrative response. This partnership reveals a profound truth about technology, ancient or modern. The most elegant machine is inert without the human intelligence to operate, interpret, and act upon its output. The reliability of the entire warning system did not rest on bronze alone, but on the vigilance, training, and protocol following competence of its attendants. Their daily, quiet vigilance in the observatory was the uncelebrated heartbeat of the invention, a reminder that innovation is never just about the tool, but about the society that builds it, tends it, and learns to listen to what it has to say. This profound legacy has earned a place on the world stage. In 2023, the historical records and research surrounding Zhang Heng's Seismoscope were nominated for inclusion in UNESCO Memory of the World Register. This is not a simple award, it is a declaration of universal significance. The Memory of the World program was created to protect humanity's most precious documentary heritage, from ancient manuscripts to pivotal sound recordings, ensuring they are preserved for future generations across all cultures. The nomination of the Seismoscope story places it within this global library of human thought. It formally recognizes the device not merely as a Chinese artifact, but as a fundamental milestone in the shared scientific journey of our entire species. This recognition does something beautiful. It transforms the detector from a national treasure into a common human inheritance. When a document or record enters this register, it receives an international commitment to its preservation, study, and promotion. Scholars from every corner of the globe are encouraged to engage with its history, engineers to analyze its principles, and educators to share its story. This creates a powerful ripple effect, fostering a deeper, cross-cultural appreciation for the diverse ways humanity has pursued knowledge. It reminds us that the drive to understand the natural world, to protect communities from disaster, and to innovate against daunting odds is a thread that connects all civilizations across time. The UNESCO nomination ensures that the quiet clang of that bronze ball will continue to resonate, not within the walls of a single palace, but in the collective memory of our planet, inspiring wonder and inquiry for centuries to come. From its ornate bronze dragons to the quiet clang of a falling ball, this story bridges 2,000 years of human curiosity. We have traced the journey of the Hufeng Didongyi, from its conception in the observatory of a Han Dynasty astronomer to its validation on modern laboratory shake tables. We have seen how a simple principle of inertia, harnessed by levers and cast in resilient metal, could translate an invisible tremor into a life-saving directional signal. This was more than a machine, it was a philosophical statement, a tool of statecraft, and a masterpiece of elegant, resilient design. Its legacy whispers a powerful truth across the centuries, that profound innovation is not always about creating something entirely new, but about observing the world with patient, brilliant eyes and crafting a solution of timeless clarity. In our own era of dazzling complexity and fleeting digital wonders, the ancient detector offers a quiet counterpoint. It challenges us to consider what we build for the long term, to value durability alongside capability, and to remember that the most humane technology often arises from a simple desire to protect one another. This silent guardian from the past does not just tell us about earthquakes, it tells us about ourselves, about our enduring capacity for wonder, for synthesis, and for compassionate ingenuity. If these journeys into the mysteries of history resonate with you, please subscribe to continue exploring the forgotten corners of our shared past. We would love to hear your thoughts on this incredible invention, so feel free to share your reflections in the comments below.